Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, here in the forum of the group exhibit Hydrogen Fuel Cells and Batteries. We will go on with our program here on stage with a wonderful topic. You all know Norway is a beautiful country, but it's not only beautiful, there's a lot of resources, natural resources for renewable energy, as well as gas and oil, as we all know. And we want to know what's going on in Norway in the maritime and industrial sector, and the Secretary General of the Norwegian Hydrogen Association can tell us more about it. Here is Kristian. Please give him a big hand. Mr. Vik, welcome here. Have a seat. So, of course, you can follow the discussion and can ask questions whenever you want to. Just raise your hand. I'll be with the microphone right with you. If you have a special question about Norway or the hydrogen projects that are going on in Norway, especially in the industrial and maritime sector. Well, you're rich in renewable energy, as everybody knows. You have a lot of hydropower in your country. You have a lot of wind power in your country. So you can use all this renewable energy for yourself and sell all the oil and gas to other countries. Yeah, export the CO2 then. That's the idea of Norway, isn't it?
Yes, it's domestically in Norway. It's high focus on utilizing the renewable energy in Norway, but it is a growing demand of use of renewable energy in general, and the production is going up quite fast because we have a lot of new wind power and hydropower that is being installed in the next 5 years. So there will be a surplus of renewable energy that we need to export, that we are not able to adapt or to use in Norway, and therefore exporting that as hydrogen is
and you think about exporting the hydrogen itself or the electricity itself? Well,
we are building high power electricity cables to Germany and Netherlands and so on, but they will not be able to cope with the amount of energy from this new surplus that we will see when we install more renewables. So we need other factors to harvest this energy, and then hydrogen is a good solution.
You could also build pipelines, you really could say, hydrogen pipelines to Germany and other European countries, because you could export so much hydrogen if you use all this renewable energy to produce hydrogen by electrolyzers.
Yes, of course, it's a huge potential for pipelines as well.
But not only by electrolyzers, but also by steam reforming.
Yes.
This is also an opportunity Norway is thinking of, taking the natural gas from the ground, making hydrogen from it by steam reforming, and then the carbon goes back to the ground.
Yes, Statoil has been working for a long time with steam methane reforming, extracting the hydrogen and CCS projects, and they are ready to step up with a large-scale project with putting that CO2 back to storage grounds in the North Sea, and they expect to have quite a huge production of hydrogen and to utilize this for the maritime sector.
It's very interesting, you know, because in Germany you can't even talk about carbon capture and storage. People don't like it, they're afraid of it, really, but obviously not in Norway. Or is there any movement against carbon capture and storage in Norway?
Well, CCS has been, it is a controversial topic. The former technologies that were tried to get into action did not succeed very well. But this process that Statoil is thinking on now with reforming and extracting the hydrogen, that creates a very pure CO2 stream that is easy to to then send through the existing pipelines back to the CO2 or to the storage.
It makes it even easier to get the natural gas out because the pressure can be held high with the CO2.
Yeah, I don't know the process very much in detail, but they say it's a simple process to separate hydrogen from CO2, yes.
Let's come to the maritime application, because you could use the hydrogen yourself, at least parts of it. For instance, you have a lot of ferries in your fjords in Norway, and these ferries only go, well, not very far distances, but they have to refuel. They could run on PEM fuel cells.
Yes, and that will indeed happen just in a few years' time. The first public state-run ferry running on hydrogen fuel will be put into operation in 2021. So there's been a process going on with a competition, and there are 3 operators that are competing, and the winner will get to develop that project into a construction phase that will start by next year. And then the ferry needs to go into testing in 2020, and then the operation in 2021.
Is there only one ferry planned, or several?
There is quite a big number of different maritime concept studies at the moment, ranging from small yachts to cruise ships. So Statoil is in the lead of the biggest ones, together with Viking Cruises for refueling of cruise ships with liquefied hydrogen. But the ferry segment is an important step to get there, because you need the legislation and regulations to be developed. Those can be adapted from existing regulations from LNG into hydrogen.
But that's something completely different. Well, we were talking about ferries. They need just a little amount of hydrogen and can refill every now and then. Now we're talking about cruise ships, which sometimes stay for 10 days on the ocean, crossing the Pacific or the Atlantic. They have to carry huge amounts of liquefied hydrogen.
Yes. Liquefied hydrogen, of course, it takes more space than a traditional liquid fuel like diesel. So it is challenging to implement LH2 for large ships. But the cruise segment is ideal in the sense that the hotel space in the ship is most power demanding, and the propulsion only accounts for 20% of the energy need. Therefore, it's much easier to try first with a cruise ship sector to develop liquefied hydrogen propulsion for large ships. And once you do this, you will get a huge amount of hydrogen needed in different ports where this ship will travel. And then you have a good
no infrastructure whatsoever for liquefied hydrogen in Norway and nowhere in the world.
Not in this scale, no. So this is a huge opportunity to create this huge value chain. And Statoil is anticipating that something between 5 and 10 huge refueling stations could be set up throughout Europe and to start this off.
We would be happy if we had in more ports LNG supply infrastructure. There is some LNG infrastructure in Norway, I know, but not in the rest of Europe. Very few places have LNG, not to speak about liquid hydrogen. So there's a lot of work to do before this cruise ship could run. But there are plans for that.
Yes. It will take at least 5 years before we will actually see a cruise ship with LH2 sailing on the sea. Yeah.
And it's probably highly needed, because if you look at the situation right now, they run on heavy fuel oil, and people say, well, this is a waste incineration plant on sea, because they burn it into the air, what nobody else would like to use, just pave the roads with it. That's the only thing you could do it. So they have to do something for the sake of their passengers who don't want to have these heavy fuel oil coming from the engine anymore. So how clear are the plans for this Viking cruise ship? Are they really determined to do it, or is it just a project that may come or may not?
Well, they have launched this last year, and they say that they have great confidence in realizing hydrogen zero-emission propulsion in cruise ships, and we see good competition between Viking Cruises and other cruise operators that also have launched fuel cell related activities like Royal Caribbean and AIDA with LNG. So there is indeed movement in the cruise sector, although it doesn't go that fast that we would like to see. But I think there is a shift now that once you have introduced zero emission as a solution, you will see much more interest. I would say for the whole sector.
Mr. Wick, could you imagine also fuel cells and liquid hydrogen for container ships as well? Because cruise ships just a small branch, you know, but container ships, that's a big amount of ships, of big ships on the sea.
Yeah. Well, this is the really exciting thing about the maritime development in Norway. Of course, we are at the forefront on maritime technologies in general, and hydrogen has really picked up in the maritime sector in Norway the last years. So we see new solutions, new designs, how you can stack up and you can scale up the systems. And a fuel cell system is easy to modularize. So the cruise ships are an important step on the road, and container ships and other heavy ships can follow after. But of course that depends on the fuel cell development of that technology. Yeah.
And it might also depend on the fuel, because you know on container ships space is very important, you know, and even liquefied hydrogen takes much more space than, like, say, diesel or maybe methanol could be the right fuel for container ships then.
Yes, and this is not very easy to try to find any conclusion on this today, because we need testing in different segments. We need the initial phase of running ships with passengers and cars first on compressed hydrogen, which is the case with this car ferry in Norway now.
Are they only use on compressed hydrogen? Yes. So you don't lose too much energy to compress it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, and the liquefaction process that demands a lot of development work. So it is crucial to go through that local ship use at first and use available technology today. So the first ships that will run with hydrogen in Norway will use tanks and fuel cell systems that we see on buses and trains today, only scale up a little bit more.
Mr. Wick, it's quite exciting to see how Norway shows the world how it could go. You know, you even have a ship running in a mileage of 20 mileage. The Yara Birkeland I've heard of. It will be completely electric and it will run autonomous, which is something very new indeed. So it's all happening in Norway at the moment in the maritime world, isn't it?
Yeah, but as I said, our maritime sector is 150 years old as a professional industry with shipbuilding, and when it comes to autonomous technologies, we've had a dynamic positioning system in place in the offshore fleet for decades already. So the expertise in Norway is
very large,
advanced,
very
yeah.
good. Yeah. I would like to invite you, if you have a question to Mr. Wick here, that just raise your hand and I'll be right with you with my microphone. It's not the case at the moment. We would like to talk about the industrial applications. We've been talking here on stage about hydrogen in refinery processes or hydrogen as a reducing agent for iron or steel production. Are projects like that also going on in Norway?
There is one quite large project that is in the concept phase with an industrial player called TCIR on the west coast of Norway that plans to use hydrogen as a reducing agent to reduce the amount of coal. And they will need around 30 tons of hydrogen per day to convert this process and reduce the amount of CO2 emission by 90%. And this is a huge emission source in Norway from the industrial sector. So if they succeed with this, it can be a game changer, and it enables hydrogen production in large scale on the west coast that can be, of course, utilized for the transport sector, maritime, and so on.
If you really use all the possibilities in Norway, you probably don't have any hydrogen left for exporting. But we will see in the end. For instance, if you look at Norway, the automobile market, in last year, the most popular car in Norway was the Tesla, which nobody could imagine here, you know. But the Tesla was most sold in Norway. Is there any chance for fuel cell cars in Norway because they are so convinced about battery electric vehicles?
I would say definitely yes, because although EVs are a huge success in Norway, as the EV fleet is growing, you will see more and more constraints and challenges because of charging, peak power demand, and people are lining up at the supercharger stations, both with Tesla and the open ones. And when people are traveling on weekend, Friday and Sunday, it's really a challenging situation with people lining
Everybody
up.
wants to fill up on Friday evening to go on Saturday into the mountains where there's no refueling station and no recharging station.
And this is a growing problem because the EV fleet is growing, and you need even more chargers, and that will put strains on the grid. And we see now larger challenges with the public costs that will be involved if you are to expand the charging infrastructure with the fast-growing EV fleet. Of course, most people are planning to charge slow charge at home, and at some point the fuel cell car will be needed to create much more flexibility for those who need more range and to be more flexible when it comes to charging.
So a lot of opportunities for hydrogen in Norway, as we can see. I would like to thank you very much, Mr. Vik, for this interesting discussion about what's going on in Norway. It's quite exciting indeed. I would like to thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much, Mr. Vik.
Thank you.